Hello, everybody, and welcome to Lush and Salty Aquariums. My name is Stefan, and thank you for coming to the channel. So, we're not facing an aquarium right this moment. We are in my fish room, however. I hardly ever do what would be called a rant video or some kind of complainer video, but I'm sort of kind of maybe gonna do one now because this thing has been vexing me for quite some time, and it's been bothering fish keepers all over the United States. I know for a fact because when I check in with all my LFS and people I know in this hobby, people, fish tubers, fellow hobbyists, everybody has the same complaint and the same information or lack of information about the topic I'm going to cover today, and that is the conspicuous long-term absence of blackworms, live blackworms that are among the best live fish food you can give your aquarium creatures of many different sizes. They're super nutritious. They're not tubifex worms. They don't grow in rancid conditions, tepid, gross water like tubifex does. They're higher in protein than tubifex. They are at least as good as baby brine shrimp in terms of a source of protein and other good nutrition for your fish, as well as being live, so they evoke the hunting instinct in all of your creatures, and fish love them. Hobbyists use them to induce breeding, spawning, to fatten up fish, to get them ready for making babies, showing them off, for show, just a litany of really positive attributes that go along with maintaining, keeping, buying, and using live blackworms. So they've been off the market for the most part for a year and change. Really, it's been over a year. I started noticing that the usual LFS that would carry these blackworms were no longer doing so, and I like everybody else, would ask, say, what's going on? And we don't know. There's a shortage, the drought in California, the fires in California. The main purveyor of California blackworms, which is actually the popular name for these small creatures, is really the only source, save for some educational places that sell small amounts at expensive prices for use in school classes and things of that nature. But for us, it would be California Blackworms, which if you Google, you go to their site. It's a primitive website, but it does the trick, and you can see all the different food offerings. You click on live blackworms, then you would see a quarter pound, an eighth of a pound, a half pound, etc., and the price would be below, and you would order a supply that could last you, if you keep them properly, which I will go into briefly. They will last 3 weeks, a month or so in your refrigerator, hoping your spouse doesn't mind having myriad live blackworms in the refrigerator, but you can be discreet about it. Also, you could buy, as I did right from that same website, a blackworm keeper, which is essentially two containers, one with a strainer portion below. You would fill this part with cold water, and you would add your shipment of blackworms that you would get double bagged in a little box, and you put them in here with the water, put some tinfoil over this thing, and stick it in the fridge. And then once or twice a week, you would pull a bunch of blackworms out with your handy dandy tweezers or a spoon or something, or a turkey baster, and feed them to your fish. It was something I relished doing, and my fish relished receiving them. And then they went off the market, and then the excuses started coming, and then the lack of information, and then the vague resentments and sort of bitter comments when as months turned into a year. The best fish shops in my area, and I'm talking Chicago now, but also California, would tell me the same thing. The fires and the droughts last year in California dried up the ponds that are used to raise these. The fires and all that went away. Months passed. That excuse no longer held water, no pun intended. And so then I started hearing, well, they're hoarding the blackworms for special customers, so you can't get them off the website anymore. And even local fish shops can't get them because specific buyers are willing to pay more. And so they're buying them out. And I heard that. And I rolled my eyes because at this point, you just didn't know fact from fiction. And then what I started doing, basically because I didn't have a choice, is I moved on, right? I just started adjusting, back to a world that didn't have this live food source in it, which meant heavying up on frozen bloodworms, using baby brine shrimp and brine shrimp more than I normally would. Now, the fish would be fine with all the great, excuse my hand, I was holding the phone and it gets tired after a while. The fish would be fine with all the great foods you can get nowadays. But if you're, passionate about this hobby, you really loved giving your fish California blackworms, live blackworms. It was a treat for them, and therefore it was a treat for you, for me in particular. So they came back for a couple shipments, and I loaded up, and they were fine, and it was excellent. And then they went away again, and then the usual excuses. Here we are in summertime, and no excuse kind of is working for me anymore, and I'm basically pissed off. And I think it's bogus that there's somehow a monopoly on this, on these freaking worms, for Christ's sake. And I'm wondering, can't somebody start creating a supply, raising their own and on a big level using ponds, and the LFS will like, yeah, it's a pain in the ass, there's no profit in it, you need blah, 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 blah. And so this one purveyor, live aquatic foods or whatever, but if you Google California blackworms, it's the first thing. Them and someone on the East Coast are supposedly it in the United States of America in terms of supplying live blackworms, and they're not doing it. And you can send emails, as I have. You can get on wait lists, as I've done, and they don't even bother to respond to those, and I've heard from the LFS that they're just as rude, if that's the right word, arrogant, if that's the right word, to, fish sellers. They're bread and butter, you would think. And what I'm saying is, if there was some sort of natural disaster, some sort of biological issue that meant that these creatures were no longer possible to breed, reproduce, and sell, well, then tell us, put it on your website, do a video, tell the LFS so that they can tell us, the customers and the hobbyists. Instead, nothing, nada, nary a peep. And that sucks, and there's really no justification for it. I bought their freaking toy, which, by the way, you can create using Tupperware. But I thought I'd be a good soldier, and when I bought a quarter pound of worms, one day I clicked and added this to it, and I was happy to do that for them back when I was happy to be a customer. And now, I'm thinking the rebellion would be we all just move on, and then when they finally do get their shit together, nobody cares anymore, and they're stuck with a bajillion blackworms. You know, that's one of my little revenge fantasies. Honestly, I'd rather just have the supply back and happily. They were also great for the fish stores because they brought people like me in. Even if you don't need any more fish or supplies, you would come in every 3 weeks to buy some. And while it was only a few dollars for a portion, you were in their store, and nobody can go into a local fish store and not buy something. So they were an excellent way to get customers into what is not a profitable enterprise, which is trying to run a pet shop. So they took that away from all these people as well. So there's a lot of collateral damage. And if anybody knows, more than what I've already said, or has a similar experience, or better yet, knows where we can get some, please put it in the comments. This is not clickbait. This is a genuine request for information. If I see a link, I will click to it and I will buy a portion of Blackworms ASAP. But my research suggests that that's not going to happen. But so maybe you know something that I don't. Please share with us. And if none of that works, and this video and all the other requests for information and Blackworms themselves fall on deaf ears, what's the next move? Just kind of do nothing and be bewildered? I guess that's really all there is to do. So that's it, folks. My little rant about Blackworms, and I'd love to hear your experience with the same thing. Okay, everybody? As always, keep your hands in the tank, and ciao for now.